the communities you work with through this funding opportunity. My name is Jess. I'm Programmes Manager here at Suffolk Community Foundation, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more today about this funding and how you can apply for it. As I said, please keep all your mics on mute, and there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. And also, if you have any pressing questions, please pop them in the chat and I can collate those and we can talk through those at the end of the presentation. So today you're going to hear from Sophie from Suffolk County Council. She's going to talk to you a bit more about the background of the funding and how it can be used. And then I'm going to talk to you more about the application process. So, Sophie, are you there? I can't see you right now, but I think you're there. Are you happy to share your screen and to start your presentation, please?
Of course. Morning, everyone. Getting some.
Morning.
Just bear with me. I'll just share my screen. Not this one. Okay. Can everybody see the slides?
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Perfect. You'll just have to shout up if anyone's got any questions because I can no longer see the chat function. So, hi everyone. I'm Sophie Hines, Project Manager in Public Health and Communities, working predominantly on the Household Support Fund and on an element of that which hopefully most of you will all know, which is the Local Welfare Assistance Scheme. So just here today to, as Jess said, give a bit of an overview of what the Household Support Fund is and a bit of context around that for those of you maybe that don't know. So ultimately, Suffolk County Council were awarded a grant at the beginning of this year by the Department for Work and Pensions, which runs from the 1st of April this year through to the 31st of March next year. And essentially the Household Support Fund is there to support those that are most in need, with obviously the rising cost of living and the global inflationary challenges. That's essentially the overarching criteria that was shared with us by DWP. So as I said, Suffolk County Council have been awarded a total grant amount to cover that period, which, as you can see here on this slide, is just over 10.2 million, which is the same amount ultimately that we've been awarded previously, albeit this is the first time that we've been awarded funding to cover a 12-month period. In the past, it's always been 6 months at a time. So I've just to give a bit of an overview in this slide here to show you how Suffolk County Council are using the grant funding to support Suffolk residents. So a large proportion of that 10.2 million over that 12-month period goes to supporting free school meal, or the provision, sorry, of free school meal vouchers during the school holidays. So we've been providing those vouchers for quite some time now, but essentially for this period of funding, we've provided vouchers from the May half term earlier this year, and that will take us through to the Easter holiday, 2-week holidays next year. So that's the kind of one of the largest proportions of that total grant amount. We've then awarded funding to our local district and borough council housing teams to support residents with housing costs. So that might be rent arrears and other housing costs. As I mentioned, a large part of my role within the council is in the management and oversight of the local welfare assistance scheme, which as of October last year was opened up to members of the public directly, who could of course make an online application for support, and where that's not possible, they're supported by some of our local citizens advice bureaus who can submit an application on an individual's behalf. We also utilise some of the funding to provide food to the food banks, and that is managed by Community Action Suffolk. We've also then got plans in place, and again, some of you may know from previous rounds of HSF funding that we have identified vulnerable cohorts using data sets that we've got internally at Suffolk County Council, and we have sent out targeted letters to those individuals to invite them to make an application for financial support. We have it in our plans over the next couple of months to pick up the same kind of approach and to send out letters to individuals that we've identified to make them aware of the local welfare assistance scheme and actually how that can support them with the rising cost of living as is needed. So then the main kind of course for today is obviously to talk you through the process for accessing support through Suffolk Community Foundation. So ultimately, the foundation will be running their own application process for VCSE organisations who will be able to access grant funding amounts to be able to support individuals in their local communities who ultimately, and for whatever reason, have not been able to access support themselves via the local welfare assistance scheme. So in setting this up, we've looked at the data that comes in from applicants under the local welfare assistance scheme, and actually there's quite a large proportion of individuals, so vulnerable and marginalised communities, that for many a reason are not making those online applications for support, but still very much the need is there. So the support through the foundation and through hopefully some of the organisations that are on this call today will be able to support some of those more vulnerable communities with getting access to some financial support. Okay, so in terms of the actual funding that's awarded, I'm just going to give a bit of an overview of the spend criteria, and then obviously colleagues from the foundation will go through more of the specifics around actually what that application will look like, and some of the kind of key points to be noted. So ultimately, any of the VCSE organisations who are awarded funds through this scheme can support individuals then with a contribution towards some of the following essential costs. And I kind of wanted to press on that point of it being a contribution. We're obviously seeing more and more people that are struggling with, you know, a wide range of problems that fit into all of these categories for eligible spend. Unfortunately, we're not able to cover the cost of everything, but this funding allows a contribution towards helping people with some of these essential costs. And again, essential kind of being the key thing here as well. So firstly, it's to support people with the cost of food. So that can either be in the provision of supermarket vouchers that then can be provided directly through your organisation to individuals in need, or potentially in some situations where that's perhaps not appropriate, actually the purchase of the food items themselves. So again, we can kind of go into that in more detail in terms of the application process through the foundation, but ultimately it's around getting support to people that don't have essential items such as food on the table. The next category is around energy and water, and again, lots of things kind of fall into this category, and I've listed here just some of them, but essentially supporting people who perhaps have a debt on their energy accounts, or as it says here, any kind of short-term support with accessing oil top-ups, or the provision of gas cylinders to allow them to heat their homes over the winter. So yeah, there's just a couple of other examples under this category. We then have essentials linked to energy and water, and again, it's quite a wide-fitting category. But again, the key thing being that it's essential items. So things like over the winter, the provision of warm clothing, whether that's winter coats or blankets, or looking at energy efficiency measures that you think as an organisation will really help that individual to keep warm over the colder months. So whether that's, some of the simple measures as listed here, the installation of hot water tanks or draft excluders, more energy efficient light bulbs, that kind of is covered under this category. We then will have the opportunity to support, and again, this will be something that the foundation will go through in a moment, I'm sure, around the process for supporting individuals with white goods. And then finally, we've got the final category is wider essentials. So again, essential being that the key point here. So that might be things such as supporting people to pay broadband or telephone bills, the provision of hygiene products, or they might need to have their bicycle repaired so that they're able to, continue to attend work. There's lots and lots of different options. As it says here, the list is not exhaustive, but essentially it should be those essential items that people really kind of can't live without. Okay, so in terms of how you can, as an organisation, can access funding, there'll be an application process that will be managed by the foundation. Grants will be available for the amounts of £1, £5 and £10,000. The window for making an application to the foundation will close on the 29th of February or before if all the funding is allocated. So the key point here is that if you would like to apply for one of these grant amounts, that the key thing really is to get your application in as soon as possible, because ultimately once those funds have gone, that online application will then close. If not before the 29th of February, then the 29th of February itself. Any grants that are received must be spent entirely by the 31st of March. That's the DWP criteria for this larger pot of money. As I mentioned at the beginning, it covers 1st of April this year to 31st of March next year. And then finally, just any funds that are obviously distributed to VCSE organisations, there will be an element of reporting required so that we can capture actually how those funds have been spent. And obviously we, as in Suffolk County Council, will then need to collate those reports and send them back to DWP at the end of the grant fund. That's everything from me. Does anybody have any questions? Joe, I can see you've got your hand up. Oh, I think you're on mute, Joe.
Me, you'd think by now I'd know not to be on mute, wouldn't you? What will the reporting look like? There was one fund that came through and we were asked to do like a questionnaire, which obviously for people fleeing domestic abuse just didn't fit with the situation that they were in, asking them like how happy they were about it and things like that. So I'm just wondering what the reporting will look like, just so I can make sure it fits with the clients that we work with.
Sure. Joe, Jess, sorry, do you want me to pick this one up?
Up to you.
Yeah,
it's fine. The report we'll touch on it a little bit, Joe, in a bit, but the reporting spreadsheet is very straightforward and simple, and there won't be the need to do a questionnaire with the people that you work with. It's very much, who had the award. We don't need people's names, and then it's what award they were given, what it was for, how much it was for, and that is the bulk of it. Nikki can talk to you more about that if that's of use later.
That's fine. There was just one where we had to do this questionnaire, which just really we couldn't make work with people who were fleeing or in a, come to us talking about really personal stuff. To move to that is a bit too much, but that sounds brilliant. Thank you.
No, there won't be any of that. No problem.
Thanks, Joe. Nick, I think you were next with your hand up.
Thank you. Just you talked about the spend by the end of March. Do you mean that we've actually got to spend every penny by the end of March, or if we've bought vouchers, can they be awarded after March?
So the guidance that we get provided by the Department for Work and Pensions obviously accounts for the provision of vouchers being purchased kind of upfront. What they do say is that the vouchers that are provided perhaps in bulk should only be ordered with a view to them being used by the end of March. If a few of them are kind of left over and that carries into April, then that's fine. But if you essentially order vouchers for 6 months from then that wouldn't be acceptable spend and we wouldn't be able to claim that back.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Janet, I think you're next. Oh no, I've missed one. Sorry.
Yeah, two things. You said that you could apply for 1,000, 5,000, or 10,000. Can it be 4,000 or 6,000, or is it really got to be 5,000 or 1,000? And secondly, a point of interest: we were in the scheme last year and the year before, and we were informed that provided the vouchers were distributed to the applicants prior to the end of the year, that was okay, because you do realise that the vouchers are actually valid for up to 5 years, depending on which firm you've purchased them from. So if you give somebody vouchers and you tell them that they should spend them by the end of March, that's absolutely fine. But if they choose not to, they can still continue to spend them for some considerable time, and you have no control over that whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm happy to pick up the second part of that question, Jess, if you want to then come back to the first one. So in terms of the vouchers, our guidance is around us as organisations distributing those vouchers to individuals in need. In an ideal situation, an individual that presented as being in need, we would then expect to provide said vouchers to support them in the immediate time frame. We wouldn't expect to be giving out vouchers and those vouchers not being redeemed for another, say, 4 or 5 months. But ultimately, that's kind of out of your control as an organisation. All we can do is to give those vouchers out, but they're to be used with the guidance that those vouchers should be redeemed in the immediate future, because it's there for that kind of immediate support.
And Janet, in terms of your question around amounts you can apply for, it is 1, 5 or 10, but if you don't think you would spend 5, for example, ask us for 1 and then come back to us if you then have spent your 1 and you would like to apply for some more funding.
Lovely. Thanks, Janet. I think Sarah, you were next.
Hi, yeah, my question's about eligibility, because you said at the beginning that they weren't able to claim the LWAS, they weren't able to make the application, which is why you've put this in place. As citizens' advice, obviously one of the first things we do is encourage them or help them or make the application for an LWAS. So if we've done that already, are you saying we wouldn't be able to use this fund to support them further?
So if, and again, we'll go through this in a bit more detail later on, but essentially, if an applicant or an individual, that you are working with has received an award from the Local Welfare Assistance Scheme since the 1st of October this year, then they will not be eligible for support through this award. However, if you are working with an individual and they're able to make an application to the Local Welfare Assistance Scheme themselves, then of course they can continue to do so as they would have done. But it's not kind of they don't need to have made an application to the Local Welfare Assistance Scheme first to enable them to then come to the relevant organisations to then make an application. So as you said, the reasoning behind us kind of putting this grant out is to support those people that we know we're not reaching. So whether that's some of the older population because they're not online, some individuals within rural communities. It's around getting support out to people in the best way possible, and LWAS is obviously one element of that support, but we know that it's not being utilised by all of those kind of smaller marginalised communities. So that's kind of where the VCSE organisations that are more closely embedded within those communities can support people through this scheme.
Sorry, I'm just going to add another question. So as Citizens Advice, we obviously know who we've applied for, but we don't know who's applied for an LWAS, say they've done it directly or whatever. We ask the question, but whatever the answer is. So, but other organisations won't know that. So they'll be able to have more, I'm going to say, freedom to actually give out funding easier, because we record everything we do. So if we've done an LWAS, you know, last month, that's recorded on our system, so we know we've done it. Whereas other organisations won't have access because you don't know who's applied outside of what you've done yourself. So it was just, it's quite hard to say, you know, someone's had an LWAS on the 10th of October and they come to us in January and we say, well, we've done that and we know you've got it, so we can't help you anymore. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and it's certainly something that we have discussed, and it's one of those difficult things because unfortunately we don't have one big system that we can all kind of log into to see kind of who's had what support and where from. But ultimately we have that kind of same process through the local welfare assistance scheme, in that we can only see those individuals that have received support directly from the local welfare assistance scheme. But actually, as part of that online application, there is a declaration for individuals to confirm that the information that they've given is true and accurate. And again, I think probably Jess and Nikki will go through this in their application process, but we would encourage organisations to ask an individual, have you received an award, and trust ultimately that the information that they give will be true and accurate. Unfortunately, that's kind of the best way that we can mitigate that risk, essentially. But yeah, other than having kind of a bigger system that captures everything, there's no real other way of kind of capturing who's had what and from where, and we just have to rely on giving a truthful, accurate answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Julia, I think you were next.
I just wondered if you could go back to the wider essentials, because that seemed like quite a broad category and I hadn't quite caught up with making notes on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But that might be one of the areas where lots of us are able to help in ways that are perhaps a bit more outside the box.
Yeah, of course. And I'm happy to share the slide set so that you don't have to kind of rapidly kind of make notes and remember everything that I've shared. And also a lot of that eligibility will be included on the Foundation's website, and I'm sure the online application to kind of reiterate that. But essentially the wider essentials does, as you say, cover quite a broad variety of support. The way that we kind of manage that is all individuals that you'll be talking to as organisations, you will get an understanding of that individual's kind of situation, and we essentially leave it at your kind of professional discretion to make a judgment on whether the things that potentially would fit into that category would be considered as essential items that support that person with, you know, the rising cost of living. You know, it's very hard to provide a fully descriptive list of this is exactly what's provided or funded, and this is what's not covered. But it will ultimately be at your professional discretion on whether it falls into that kind of wider essentials category. David, I think you were next.
Good morning, all. I'm here out of interest as part of the recently commissioned Stour Valley Men's Sheds group based in Long Melford. We're interested in trying to contribute to the raft of present unknown needs of the community. Notwithstanding GDPR privacy and general courtesy to people's private lives, I wonder how I might, or how you might be able to help me understand in greater detail how we might be able to help this kind of phenomena, and the people who would otherwise keep their needs quite private. without invading their space. Is there a way that we can relatively formally integrate into existing systems such that we will complement it rather than compromise other well-established approaches? Is there any way I can get a better understanding, or
Jess, Nikki, I don't know if you've got any views on that with some of the organisations you work with and how there might be some potential for link up there.
Yes, we can certainly put you in touch.
We can certainly put you in touch, David, with some other organisations, and perhaps we could pick this up after today. If you'd like to drop me an email, and we can pick it up after the call.
thank you very much. I'd be grateful.
No problem.
And then Charlotte, I think you were next.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. Just a quick one, just to ask, is the application and the reporting for the difference amount, is it the same regardless whether you apply for the 5,000 or the 10,000? It's all the same sort of process? Yeah, lovely, thank you.
It is, Charlotte, yeah.
Linda, I think you were next. Albeit, I'm just wondering, Jess, if some of the questions that people perhaps have got might be covered in the section that you're both going to deliver on the application. So I don't know kind of how you want to proceed. I'm happy to continue with questions, but
Yeah, quite possibly. Is it just Linda that we've got left to ask? I can't see another.
saw another hand pop up, but it might have gone back down now. So I'm happy to pick up your question, Linda, if you wanted to come in.
And hopefully simply, I represent a group in Bungay, and we're on the Norfolk-Suffolk border. So we have we work with people from both counties. Is something similar being done through Norfolk Community Foundation? Or would I have to apply to both to work with residents from both counties?
So I don't know the answer to that question in terms of
fair enough.
what that is with Norfolk. That would obviously be managed by Norfolk County Council. I imagine that somewhere within their provision of household support funding grant that there probably is something set up, but what quite that is, I don't know, and it probably won't be exactly the same as what we're doing with obviously the Suffolk Community Foundation.
Yeah, Linda, I'm not sure either, to be honest. But if there was the same opportunity being shared through Norfolk, then you would need to apply to Norfolk Community Foundation, and then for your Norfolk community, and separately to Suffolk. Okay, if there's no more questions, I will share my screen. If you just can bear with me. Sometimes it's a little bit slow. Yeah, like now. Okay. What does this do yesterday? Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay.
Well, it's not come through yet.
Okay.
There we go.
Are we there? Good.
Yes, I can see.
Brilliant. Okay, so I can't see you guys now, sadly. So, but if you have any questions, then I'll happily take them at the end or pop them in the chat. So, as Sophie has said, the household support funding is for those in financial hardship who are facing significant rising living costs. And funded organisations will be able to support the below categories, which are pensioners, families, disabled people, and other vulnerable households. Grants of up to £300 per household can be awarded for the following items, and that's food, energy, water, essentials linked to energy and water, white goods, and wider essentials. And as we've run previously, the preference would not be to give cash, but to actually pay a bill or purchase a supermarket voucher or a fuel voucher. And down there. Sorry, bear with me a second. Sorry, my screen is frozen. Can you click? There we go. Sorry about that. So the White's Good process for this year will run as it did last year. We'll be working with Ipswich Furniture Project and also Gatehouse Caring to deliver the white goods. So Suffolk Community Foundation will be able to provide you with a referral form, and this is for all funded organisations, but we'll also be sharing this form with our wider partners as well. So they and yourselves can refer a service user or a client to Ipswich Furniture Project or Gatehouse Caring, depending on where they live, and the details are here. We touched on it earlier, but the sort of items that can be requested are here: cooker, washing machine, fridge, freezer, microwave, slow cooker. Again, at your discretion of what you think that family or individual needs. But yeah, if you have any questions on the White's Good process, please let us know. But Ipswich Furniture Project and Gatehouse Caring will have their own funding to distribute. So it won't be you need to use any of your funding that you're awarded for this area. So what are the exclusions here? Grants may not be used to pay rent or mortgage payments or arrears. This should be done through district and borough councils, and you can signpost people there if necessary. Grants cannot be used by food banks or top-up shops to restock their shelves. However, food banks can provide support to families and individuals that they see through food vouchers. If top-up shops and food banks need any support, they should contact Emily, who I believe is on this call, and she's at Community Action Suffolk. Furniture, carpets and curtains cannot be supplied through this funding, and individuals who've received an LWAS payment since the 1st of October, as we've spoken about before, will not be eligible to apply. So the application process through Suffolk Community Foundation is as grants of up to 1,000, 5,000 or 10,000 are available to organisations. Organisations may use 7.5% of the grant awarded to support your costs in delivering this funding. The deadline for applications will be 29th of February next year. However, we know this will be a competitive funding programme, and we advise you to apply as soon as possible, because if we run out of funding, we will close the fund early. All funding must be spent by the 31st of March and reporting completed by the 5th of April. As we said, a simple spreadsheet will be required from yourselves and submitted to the foundation twice during the grant period, and that's the 9th of February and the 5th of April. And unfortunately, due to the tight timescales of us needing to report back to SCC for their reporting to DWP, we won't be able to offer any extensions to reporting dates. Please do anonymise your reports to us. We don't need to know the individual's names. Instead, we suggest perhaps giving each household an ID number or something so that you can track the number of awards that have been made. There'll be no grant monitoring requirements beyond this spreadsheet, but we are always grateful for case studies, stories or quotes from your service users. So please do forward those to us if possible, and including the permissions for us to be able to use them or share them with the funders. It's always really lovely for us to be able to share some positive, good news stories that comes from this funding. So as with all our grants programmes, we will need you to provide the following documents to apply to us for funding. It's our standard requirements, and we need a governing document, articles of association, or a set of rules for your organisation. We require a safeguarding policy, and that's not just if you're working with children and young people, that is for everybody. We need to see a copy of your most recent end of year accounts, and if these are more older than 6 months old, we would like to see a copy of your current management accounts, please. And your organisation must have a bank account in the organisation's name, which requires 2 signatories for all transactions. So what happens next? Our applications will open tomorrow, the Friday the 24th of November. And applications will close at 5 p.m. on Thursday the 29th of February next year, or sooner if the funds are all used up. Funding decisions will be made weekly, so we hope to give you a quick turnaround and be able to get an answer back to you very quickly. So if you have any questions on this, please do come back to myself or Nikki. We will be sharing these slides and Sophie's slides and the recording of this webinar on our website under household support funding. So if you need clarification, please check back there. But by all means, do get in touch with us. So that just leaves me to answer any questions. Nick, a question, please.
Thanks again. I did ask in the chat, but can you apply for more than one £300 for white goods for an individual family? If an individual family needs 2 white goods, could you apply for 2 grants for that family?
No, it is just one £300 grant per household.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Nick. Janet?
In your introduction, you spoke about fuel vouchers. When we ran this scheme last year, one of the biggest problems we had, most of our people have oil. It's a rural village. So, and we couldn't do any kind of deals with the oil suppliers to purchase the oil on their behalf. So we actually got permission to provide checks to the individuals to cover the cost of the oil, though we checked that they had purchased it. Are you aware of fuel vouchers then? Because you spoke about them.
I would advise it to recommend your client goes to Surviving Winter potentially in the first instance when it comes to oil or fuel. Surviving Winter scheme run via Ipswich Citizens Advice would be able to support those that are eligible with half a tank of fuel or fuel payments, and they get good discount as well. Nikki, got anything to add on that for previous years?
No. Sorry, I'll mute my mic. No, I would just say for those clients who need support with fuel, first port of call would be the Surviving Winter campaign, as just said, run in partnership with Ipswich Citizens Advice. Although all of the Citizens Advice bureaus will be able to signpost people to Surviving Winter. So that would be my advice for people who are approaching you for help with fuel in the first instance.
Okay, are there any further questions? Let me just see.
Amanda at Gatehouse.
Amanda?
Hi, yeah, it was just to answer to Janet, really, having done it myself before. If you use boiler juice, you can have multiple addresses for delivery of fuel.
Thank you, that's helpful. And is there any other questions? I can't see any more hands up. I will just double check the chat. Andrew, did you have a question?
Yes, please. Just about amounts. So, 5K, by my reckoning, if it's £300 grant, that's a maximum of 15 families, which is not a large number of families for an urban area such as ours. Can we make more than one application for 5K?
Yes, so you can. The applications are either at 1,000, 5,000 or 10,000. If you went in for 5 to start with and then you spent your 5, then please do come back to us. And if we have funding remaining, we can accept another application.
I mean, what we've done in previous years is at ring fence the £200 or £300 per family, but give them half at a time. So when they come back for the second bite, that way you can help more households rather than just a blanket £300 for every applicant. That's just some advice for others might be helpful.
Yeah, we're happy for you to be led by what you think is right for the communities that you work with, whether you want to just give each household that comes for support £300, or whether you offer them a smaller amount to start with and then the remainder later on. Okay, I think that's all the questions from the chat, and I think from everyone on the call. So just leaves me to say thank you very much for joining. Please visit our website tomorrow, where you'll be able to find copies of these slides, the webinar, and the link to apply. And then if you have any questions, please do get in touch with us. Thanks very much, everyone. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jess, is it possible for us do you want me to email you and start a conversation outside this forum?
Yes, please. That would be great.
I'd be glad to do so. Thank you very
Thanks,
much for
David.
your help. Quite
No
insightful.
problem.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well done.
Oh, thank
Did
you.
that really well.